odds are the challenges that you're having are kind of par for the course. And it's most likely because you haven't played the numbers game to your advantage yet.
You have to do this process, and you have to play this numbers game, and you have to be willing to get rejected quite a lot in order to be successful in pretty much anything. And that has ringed true. That has ringed true my entire life.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode, episode number 1427. Are you a turtle or a pufferfish or a lion, lioness? Now we have a new creature. Today, for episode number 1428, what if your success is just a numbers game? I used to work with this guy, and he always dated very beautiful women. And I never understood why. Wasn't that necessarily good looking. He wasn't in really good shape. He didn't have a great job until he started working at the company I worked at. Wasn't really kind. Just didn't really have that much going for him. Really. Very charismatic. But other than that, didn't have much going for him. Then one night, we went out and we drank excessive amounts of alcohol. And it all made sense to me because he approached every single woman that walked by and just went up to them and hit on all of these women. And not in an aligned manner in all these ways, but he just kept asking, kept introducing himself to people, kept getting rejected over and over and over and over and over again. And eventually one of the people said yes, and I think he ended up dating this person, and I think they might still be together to this day. I don't know. I haven't talked to this person in years. But they had what seemed like a relatively decent thing going on. I don't know. What if the success that he had was just a numbers game and the perceived failure that I had was also just a numbers game? I was so afraid to get rejected, I would never approach people. Well, if you don't approach somebody, you're not going to get a yes. For every time you don't do something because you're afraid of getting no, you're also stopping yourself from ever potentially getting a yes. And that is what this episode is about. Let's do this. I was talking to somebody the other day about podcasting, and they said, I don't have any success. Nobody's paying me for coaching. I'm not getting any opportunities. I'm not getting any speaking engagements. And I said, you have 1,000 downloads. You have 1,000 downloads. When we had 1,000 downloads, we didn't have any of that either. I said, it's just a numbers game. Your expectations are just off. Somebody lied to you. You were lied to, most likely. Your success boils down to the numbers game. And you're just not at the point where you're going to get those results yet. Go ahead, sir.
Can you go a little deeper on why 1,000 listens is not going to lead to a ton of success?
Yeah. There's just a lot of layers. So if you have 1,000 listens, hypothetically, and if you're not a podcaster, this might not resonate, but it will if you can connect it to whatever it means to you. You have 1,000 listens. Okay. Let's say you have 100 episodes. Okay. That means 10 people listen to each episode. So it's really, instead of 1,000, it's actually 10 people. And then, okay, out of those 10 people, how many do you actually know? You could say, oh yeah, Chris listens. Or Brittany listens. That number gets smaller. So let's say out of the 10 people that listen, you only know 3 of them. Out of the 3 people that listen, how many real authentic relationships have you built? Let's just say maybe it's 1. Out of the real authentic relationships that you've built, how many of those people have you tried to offer a compelling solution to? AKA coaching, speaking engagement, whatever it is. None. There you go. That's why you don't have any results yet. The ratio, the conversion rate is probably going to stay the same, but when you get 1 million listens, it makes things a little bit easier. That would be
a little more than a little bit.
It's still challenging.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It makes it a lot easier, but it's still very challenging.
Yep.
It's just less challenging. So,
well said.
I appreciate that. I have a podcast about podcasts. I talk about this all the time, son.
57 episodes, I hear.
As you so beautifully talked about last episode. So, yeah, most of it is just a numbers game. And if you have any aversion to getting no, or to getting ghosted, or to getting feedback, it's very hard to play the numbers game because our emotions are tied up in it. And then it gets to our self-worth. And we think if somebody says no to me, it means there's something wrong with me. And this isn't just in sales or business. Alan's story is very much for anybody trying to better their lives.
I had something come to me. Okay, you mentioned earlier that Taylor Swift's latest concert was the most successful concert ever?
The tour.
Tour.
I don't know if it was the most successful ever, but the government came out and said that she actually boosted the economy in like a meaningful way. So that's pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Of all the people who have ever heard, so let's say I'm in a room with 1,000 people and I'm on stage, I'm speaking. And I say, who here has ever heard a Taylor Swift song? Every hand would go up. Even if it's in passing. We'll say 95%. So 950 people, their hand would go up. Who here has ever listened to an entire Taylor Swift album? Most of those hands would go down. Maybe, I don't know, 100 or 50. Hands are up still. Okay, how many of those 50 people have ever been to a Taylor Swift concert? Oh, okay, so only 10 of them. And then of those 10 people, how many of them have ever been to a Taylor Swift concert in the front row? And maybe there's only one hand still up. That's a lot of how business works. Taylor Swift has touched the lives of everyone on the planet. Not everyone, but a lot of people. Definitely not everyone. But billions. I would say billions of people have at least heard a Taylor Swift song. But very few of them are ever going to meet Taylor Swift. And I think that that's a good understanding. I think, for anyone who's out there listening, you kind of have to understand. When Kevin says numbers game, that's what he's talking about. That's what he's talking about. The story that I had for this that I think is very compelling is I was so we spoke on Friday for 3.5 hours. And the next day, I was sitting at lunch in the very lunchroom that we spoke at the day before. And I joked about how I had some empty seats, so I ate their food. It was awesome. But the reason why we are doing this episode is because I was talking to these college students, and I spoke to them the day before, and we had breakout sessions. I got to know these kids pretty well, but then I really got to know them at lunch. So it's me and 1, 2, 3, closing my eyes right now because I'm trying to remember. 1 to my right, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then one father. So there's 5 undergrad students, college kids, and myself in this table, big round table, in this lunchroom. And one of them, so there's 6 people, 7 people including me, and one of them's the father of one of the kids, and one's in robotics, one's in material science, all this stuff. They were talking about how they couldn't get internships. 2 of them were talking about how they just couldn't get an internship. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I'm a business owner. I would hire you guys for sure. Like, and again, I wouldn't, because we like to work with people from the community, and there's a lot of things behind that. But my point is like, of course you could. In my head, my career development brain said, you 2 are brilliant. Yes, you're going to get an internship, no problem, if you do it right. They continued talking. I'm just observing at this stage. And they're both talking about how hard it's been to get an internship. And I said, well, how many internships have you applied to? And he's like, 2, 3, nothing. Didn't hear anything. And in my head, and again, this is the benefit of being on both ends of the table. I remember when I was at WPI, which these kids are from my alma mater, my school, Worcester Polytechnic Institute, for those of you who don't know, kind of like a mini MIT. It's in New England. The point is these kids are very sought after. It's a tech school. It's a very hard school to get into. I didn't know how I was going to get in. It was a big deal. So I'm sitting there with my career development brain going, you only applied to 3 internships. You can't expect to even get an interview. But I remember back when I was their age, and I remember I was scared not to get an internship. My first internship was at a place called Tyco Safety Products. And I must have applied to at least 50 jobs. At least. And then my next internship, my Aunt Jane was working at iRobot, and she got me that one. So as a kid, you don't really know how valuable you are. You don't really know how rare you are. Particularly these kids, because they're at a tech school and there's a lot of tech companies and they're in high demand. So there's no question whether or not they could get an internship. No question. But if you apply to only 3, what if the people at those jobs got 100 applications? And what if they're looking through the applications and then they get to the 3rd application, they go, oh, this person's perfect. Let's get them on the phone. They get on the phone with them, they hire them. It doesn't mean you're not good enough. It doesn't mean you're not valuable. It just means that you got lost in the pile of other applications. You got to apply to at least 100 jobs before you can expect 10 interviews. You got to at least do 10 interviews before you can expect 1 job. That's the numbers game we're talking about. But if you are afraid of rejection, to Kevin's original point, you're not going to apply to 100 companies. And I had that moment listening to these 2 kids talk about this where I'm like, oh my goodness, you guys actually think you're not valuable. I could actually feel it. It's like they actually think they're not good enough yet. I had that moment of like, oh, you actually think that your worth is not there. These companies would love to have you. You just haven't shot enough shots to hit a 3-pointer. It's very clear to me that that's common. And I do remember going to career fairs feeling worthless. And in hindsight, I'm telling you, I would do anything to hire me. You just don't know that because you've never been a business owner yet. And I think that's really important to understand. So quite frankly, some people don't get a job because they don't have a good resume and they probably aren't at a great school and maybe they don't have many skills that are relatable or not relatable, but marketable. And that is true for some people, quite frankly. If you have no resume, no good grades, no good college, no good skills, no good interviewing skills, you're in trouble. And I'm not going to sugarcoat that. Okay. But that was not the case with these kids. These kids are articulate for the most part. They're brilliant, and they just didn't shoot enough shots.
I would try to paint a picture, kind of a story. If you were trying to sell something, this is the clicker to my fan in my office, but if you were trying to sell this, and I said, you have to sell this by the end of the day, and okay, cool, let's do this. If you sell this by the end of the day, I'll give you $100. I have a $100 bill. Here you go. So if you sell this, you get this. The only rule is you can only go to your laptop one time. So you can go to your laptop one time. You can message one person or you can message 1,000 people, but you can't go back to your laptop. Say you message someone and they say, no, I'm not interested. You can't message somebody else. You only get one seat, one time at your laptop. You can send as many messages as you want. I think most people would probably say, I should send a message to every single person in my friend group. I would think. But I also know in the beginning, I would say, okay, who are the 3 people that might actually buy this? I'm just going to send a message to them. Even in that analogy, in that example, there's not a lot of rejection because it's not that big of a deal if you don't do it. But the reason I paint that picture is because as humans, I think we know it's a numbers game. If you ask enough people, eventually you're going to get a yes. Eventually. But I also understand it's not that simple if you have any fear of rejection. If you have any attachment of self-worth to the outcome, I understand. The other thing that I think happens to us, Alan, is I believe our expectations are off. Because there's not a lot of people that say, I applied to 50 jobs before I ever got one. Or people come out and say that, but even them saying that is more the rule than it is the exception.
Yeah.
I had a call with a podcast client the other day, and they said, I can't get on any other podcasts. And I said, how many messages have you sent? And they're like, like 5 or 10. And I said, Laura sends 7 a day.
It's 3.
Is it 3 a day?
It's
well,
3
at one point it was 7.
Yeah.
So, and I said, that's every day. That's every single day.
Yeah, she never misses.
Never misses.
Shout out to Laura. Never misses.
Never misses. That's the reason I get on so many other podcasts, and we have credibility and perception because of this show and all that. But if we only sent 3 at once, there would be none.
And you have like 130 reviews or something crazy of people saying how amazing you are at interviewing, which is wild.
It is wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, considering I'm not that good and I suck pretty bad. No, just kidding.
No.
I know.
Yeah.
If we sent 3 once, nothing would happen. Nothing would happen. If we sent 3 twice, the likelihood goes up a little bit, but not a lot. And I'm always trying to paint this. I said this on Podcast Growth U. This is a plug for Podcast Growth U. I said everybody has the same problems you're having, just most people aren't willing to admit them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we had the same exact problems in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea why nobody's signing up for this or doing this, because that's not the way it works. That's it. But everybody's saying it's the way it works. I just think they're pulling blinders over us and they're hurting our expectations. So that would be an early next level nugget for me. Is odds are the challenges that you're having are kind of par for the course, and it's most likely because you haven't played the numbers game to your advantage yet. That's what I would say.
Hey everybody, I'm Rebecca. I started off with the group coaching and it was fantastic. I was able to use the PPT to kind of track. Now back then I wasn't very consistent, and as of late I have been working with Alan individually, and he's gotten to know me more on a personal level, and so he knows when to be gentle with me and when to push me harder, and he has really helped me with the consistency in the tracker, and he's just great to work with and really cares not only about my business goals but my personal life as well. So it's been a blessing working with him, and I'm just very thankful to have him take me just to the next level in business and in life.
So how do we make this even more tangible? Here's what we'll do. I just wrote an article, blog, Next Level blog, every other week. So if you want on the blog, message me, alan@nextleveluniverse.com. I'll put you on the mailing list. Every other week, you're going to get an article, a blog that is extremely, extremely focused on how. We talk a lot about why on this show, what, self-awareness. This is how to. There's 8 of them so far, 8 bi-weeks in a row, which is what? You're looking at 4 months. Yeah, so we've been doing this for 4 months, haven't missed. And it's all about how to blank. In this case, it's how to become a sales star. I have this simple framework. I'll put it in the show notes. You can download it. It's 5 steps. And the first thing that I talk about in this blog is that sales is not what you think it is. If you're trying to get a job, you're trying to sell yourself to this company, to this organization, to this nonprofit, to this charity, to whatever. If I try to... Kevin on the podcast said last week that I should go see Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer is a new movie that he thinks I'll like. He sold me on it. I'm convinced I'm going to go watch it. Okay? That's sales. Anything you influence anyone. Sales is not the sleaze. It can be. Some people are lying through their teeth, quite frankly. So it's giving sales a bad rep. Some of these people are quite frankly, oh, you're going to make $100,000 this year on this course. No, you're not. No, you're not. It's all fake. It's the Wonder Mop. It's not real. If you've ever been at the Big E in the U.S., I don't know if the Big E is global or not. I doubt it.
I don't think so.
The Big E is this. Okay, so New England has this fair called the Big E, and they always are trying to sell you these things that don't really work. You ever been to a circus and you try to do the basketball and you want to win a big stuffed animal, but they crimp the rims so you can barely get the basketball in the... Yeah, that it's rigged. In Instagram land and Facebook land and TikTok land, these ads, I'm telling you, some of these courses, a lot of this stuff is rigged. Kevin and I will never, ever sell you something that is not in integrity, that is not exactly how we did it. Okay? We are leading by example in everything. As a matter of fact, we're the ones telling you it's not going to work. You need to actually work for this to work. We're the ones that's why it's so hard to sell, because we're basically saying in 5 to 10 years, this will work really well. We promise. Other people are like, in 3 months, you can make $100,000 on, Amazon drop shipping. No, you can't. Yeah, you can, but 1 in a billion people do that. You might as well go win the lottery. So I digress. The sales star is 5 steps. I'll go real fast with this. If you want the blog, it'll be in the show notes. The first one is get exposure. That can be a podcast episode. That can be an Instagram post. That can be a post on your Facebook. Emilia and I found a kitten on the side of the road that we rescued. Okay, now it's Tiger Lily, and it's Tucker, Tariel, and Tiger Lily, Tilly for short, and we decided to keep it. But when we were trying to rescue it and find a family to adopt, she posted on her Facebook, get exposure. Okay, in a way, we're trying to sell the kitten. Obviously, we're not selling it because we were giving it for free, but we wanted to find an aligned home. So glad we didn't, actually, because I've fallen in love with this kitten. But anyways, get exposure is number 1. So she posts on her Facebook. Number 2 is make a meaningful connection. Someone reaches out and says, I have a daughter who really has always wanted a kitten. Okay, meaningful connection. Number 3, so step 1, get exposure. Step 2, make a connection. Step 3, build the relationship. She started asking them questions. Hey, is it a good home? How old's your daughter? You know, I still got to take the cat to the vet to make sure, you know, we're good to go, all that kind of stuff. Okay, build the relationship, build the relationship, build the relationship. Last one is offer a compelling solution. The fourth one, I should say. Kevin already mentioned this. Offer a compelling solution. In this case, here's the kitten. You really should make sure that they get their vaccines and XYZ. Okay? Fifth and last one is meaningful follow-up. Assuming we did actually let this family adopt the kitten, we didn't. We kept the kitten. Glad we did. But if we did, hypothetically, we would have followed up and said, you know, to make sure that it's a good home and they're taking good care of the kitten. And Tariel was actually adopted. There was a family that got a new dog. Or no, Tariel and the dog of this family were not getting along. Tariel was like 7 weeks old. Tariel's my other cat. And Bianca, Emilia's business partner, said, hey, you want a cat. You and Alan have been talking about getting a kitten. Because Kev keeps talking about how he's the ultimate cat dad, and obviously, you know, you can't have that. So, no, I'm joking. We ended up going to see it, and the point of this is that there are steps in this process. You can't expect to shoot one shot and expect it to go in the hoop. You have to do this process, and you have to play this numbers game, and you have to be willing to get rejected quite a lot in order to be successful in pretty much anything. And that has ringed true. That has ringed true my entire life. You know, of all the people you know, maybe there's only 100 of them that want a kitten. And of those 100 people, how many of them are actually good homes for that kitten? Maybe 10. And of those 10, maybe you only trust 3 of them enough to actually give the kitten away. And again, that's, you know, just like in college, you apply to, 20 colleges. Maybe you get into 10 of them. Maybe you really only want to go to 2 of them. And then you're torn between those 2. Everything in life is a numbers game. Yes, you can get better at sales. Yes, you can get better at influence. Yes, you can get better at speaking. But at the end of the day, you have to shoot a lot of shots if you want to succeed.
Last thing I would say, let's just say, we'll use the example of you date X amount of people you approach. Let's just say that, hypothetically. Let's just say you date 1 out of every 5 people you approach. If you only approach 5 people, you'll think you're only capable, or you're only attractive enough, or you're only a good enough partner, or you only have enough personality to date 1 person. But if you dated 10, or if you approach 10 people, you get 2. You have 2 dates, and you'd say, oh wow, this is going better than I expected maybe. If you approached 15 people, you get 3 dates. The problem is when I say the conversion rate stays the same, all I'm saying is if you approach 1 person, you get 5 dates. Or sorry, if you approach 5 people, you get 1 date. It's the same. It's 1 to 5. So if you approach 2, or I'm jeffing this whole thing. If you approach 10, you get 2. If you approach 15, you get 3. The problem is we think it's us. Well, I sent 5 messages and I only got 1 response. That's actually really good.
Yeah, it's really good.
And if you sent 10 messages, you get 2 responses. And if you sent 15 messages, you might get 3 responses. And you're learning this whole time. Now, if you're not in sales and business, I promise, this is everything. It's not just that, it's everything. It's absolutely
Before
everything.
we go, I know you got to jump, but can you give one more example that would be more relatable maybe than the sales stuff that I just did? I tried with the kitten. I don't know if that was the best. Because technically, we were actually the one with the product. We were the ones who were like, I don't know, that home's not good enough. You know what I mean? We were having them sell us more than the opposite. So what's one, because Kev, you struggled with this in the beginning of our business a lot. Kev used to be, and I'm not trying to make fun of him or anything, but Kev used to be offended when people wouldn't get back to us. And it's like, dude, that's fine. That's how it works. That's totally okay. But I've been getting rejected and failing my entire life. So that was it never hurt my self-esteem. It's not like I applied to 100 jobs and then was like offended that I didn't get any of them. I just kind of knew that that's how it works. And maybe 100 is an exaggeration, but if I apply to 10 jobs, I don't expect to get 10 jobs. I don't even expect to get 10 responses. Maybe get 1 response. So I think as someone who struggled with this a lot in the beginning, and you've really overcome this. Seriously, you're like, yeah, of course. You're being ghosted by many people and you're dealing with that. So yeah, what would you say?
Well, one, again, somebody's response to you is oftentimes more a response to themselves than it is anything else. That's one thing that's helped me tremendously. I said this at one of our events. I've said this at many events. Has anybody ever given you $1,000 and then run away from you? That's happened to me. I have thousands of dollars sitting in a bank account from people who gave me money and will not answer me. They are rejecting me even though they didn't reject me in the beginning. It's still happening in different ways. So I throw that out there just so you know you're not alone if that happens to you. Man, I don't know. The best example I could give is it's most likely not the first conversation you have with somebody that's going to change their life. It's most likely not the first person you date that you're going to marry. It's most likely not the first job you get that you'll stick with forever. Most likely the first house you buy is not the one you're going to live in forever. It's just a numbers game. It's almost never the first thing that's going to be the forever thing. That's probably the best. I think it's different for me just because I was so broke that I had to figure this part out. Or I had to deal with it. I had to deal with the fact that you're going to get no's before you get yeses, but I just had so much necessity.
We used to interview people every single week for this podcast. How many messages do you think we sent versus interviews we got?
Man, for every interview we had, we probably sent, we've sent thousands of messages. Definitely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for every interview we had, we probably sent 10 messages.
Yep.
At least.
And that's us who I would say publicly are pretty strong at sales. We're good at this. So. Yeah. I'd say we're good at this. And we still sent 10 messages for every interview, right?
Okay, let's do this. What do we have? A 40% conversion or 35% conversion rate, 30% conversion rate for getting
30.
on the shows?
I think it's 30.
So for every 10 messages we send, I get on 3 shows.
Yep.
And Laura gets me on.
Which is amazing numbers. That's unbelievable.
But that's
unbelievable.
Even that isn't great if you come from the expectation if I sent 10, I was expecting like at least 7 or 8. It's the opposite. It's the opposite. The people you expect not to get back to you, that number, say only, I don't know, probably 2 out of 10 probably won't get back to me. Those are the people who are going to get back to you. It's the opposite. It's the opposite of what you think probably. Is what I would say.
Well said. This is important.
Very important.
When it comes to success, that's why you put success in quotes, because
I did for those of you who are just listening. Well, if you're listening, you can see the title, but yeah.
Success is in quotes because success means something different to everyone. But success is about achievement. And if you want to achieve a specific goal, number of clients, number of customers, number of dates, number of jobs, you're going to have to shoot more shots. And so that would be my next level nugget, is just shoot more shots and try hard not to internalize the failure as you are a failure, because you're not. It's totally normal.
Yeah. My next level nugget would be one of the reasons that you haven't had the level of success that you believe is because you are off on your expectations. Your expectations are just a little bit off of the way it should go. That's it. Most likely it's not going to be the first person. It's just that. We have 709 people in Next Level Nation. We have 850,000 listens. It's a numbers game. None of our clients have anywhere close to that level of people in their Facebook group. Of course not. They don't have as many listens as we do. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. That would be my next level nugget.
Strong work.
Thank you so much. You as well. Hey, you as well.
Very important concept.
Yeah, and if you're, again, if this isn't about sales or business, if you're not in sales or you're not in business, this is life. This carries over to the amount of conversations you have with your child. It's a numbers game. The first one where you say, hey, smoking's bad for you. That might not be the one. But it might be the 500th one you have when you just kept at it. If you haven't joined our private Facebook group, if you're not one of those 709 or 712 or however many people it is, we would love to have you in there. The best group in the world. I'm going to say it. There's a lot of people that say it. I mean it when I say it's the best group in the world. Link will be in the show notes. You can be yourself. You can be authentic. You can be vulnerable. And you don't have to worry about getting judged because everybody in that group is into growth. And they know what it's like to be judged. Because maybe they're the weird person in their group who is always talking about how to get better, staying up all night, having deep conversations like Alan and I were in the beginning of this. So you're not going to be weird in this group. You're going to fit right in, I promise.
Also, Kevin and I talked a lot this week about the speech that we gave in Pittsburgh. 3.5 hours, 3 keynotes, 2 breakout sessions. It was powerful. It was deep. It was definitely life-changing for some of those kids and definitely transformative for us as speakers as well. If you resonated with a lot of that stuff, you have a organization, you have a company, you have a charity, you have a group of people, a group of individuals that you think a speech would be good for. If you are local, we could potentially do it in person. If you are not, we do virtual things. If you are intrigued, please reach out to us. Email me, alan@nextleveluniverse.com. Say, hey, I have a speaking opportunity. We also have a landing page where you can look at the different types of speeches that we give. I will also have the production team put that link in the show notes as well.
Tomorrow, for episode number 1429, we really wish we stopped spending time with these people sooner. We had a lot of breakthroughs. Alan and I spent a lot of time together over the last half of a week. So we learned a very important lesson that allowed us to connect to so many other things we couldn't not share it with you. So we'll be talking about that tomorrow. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, you don't have fans. We have family. We'll talk to you all tomorrow.
Keep shooting more shots. Next Level Nation.